They're picking up these here. That's the thing.
They take it picks up. So what is
Well, in fact, it's going to reduce the travel time from Euston, the network rail station in a minute, to Birmingham. It's around an hour and 15, hour and 20. It'll take you down to 45 minutes. So being able to get to Birmingham in less than an hour, it's going to make a real difference. But then also, it's going to increase the capacity on the existing line. Because if you go on the mainline station from Euston up to anywhere up north, it can be quite congested. So actually having a high-speed line will reduce the capacity, will increase the capacity on those network rail stations as well. So there's a real solution focus to what we're doing. But we are two companies that are building the station because it's such a massive project. One company couldn't do it all by itself. So Mace, who I work for and Maxima works for, we're a UK construction consultancy, about 7,000 people employed globally. We're responsible for the Shard, so we built the Shard, we built the London Eye, we also built the Olympic Park and Tottenham Hotspur Stadium as well. So some pretty landmark projects in London. And Dragados are a global firm based in Spain, a heavy engineering firm. They employ around 150,000 people worldwide, absolutely massive organisation. They've just completed the upgrade to Bank Station, and they've also built high-speed railways across the world. And this is the line between Madrid and Barcelona in Spain. So two completely different organisations, but bringing together the specialist technology, engineering, know-how and construction skills to be able to build a project of this nature. So I'm just going to play you, if this plays, a video which will give you a sense of what it is that we're actually building. So play it at the beginning at the end.
Well, maybe I'll come up later because we haven't got the set right.
So you can see from that video, it didn't actually play the whole thing, but what it'll actually do. So HS2 as a project will not only be building a train track from here to Birmingham, we'll also be building 4 stations. So there's the terminus, which is in Euston. There's a station that's being built out Old Oak Common in West London. There's one further up just by Birmingham Airport that's being built, which is called Birmingham Interchange. And then you'll have the destination station, which is Curzon Street in Birmingham. So that will be 4 massive stations, completely new stations that are being built as a result of this. As it said on that little clip there, there's 32 miles of this that will be in tunnels. So there's a huge amount of tunnelling that's going on between London and Birmingham at present. Now, obviously, that's putting into a lot of green belt land. So that means a huge amount of trees that are being ripped up, but they're all being replaced. In fact, more trees will be planted than were dug up. So whilst there's a lot of disruption that's happening, there'll be a huge amount of benefit for both people who live in, particularly in Camden, in London, out around Acton, and then parts of Birmingham as well. So there's 34,000 jobs that will be created as a result of HS2. Huge amount of apprenticeships that will be created, particularly at the station build. So we'll be taking on a large number of apprentices over the next 10 years, because that's how long it's going to take us to build the station. So we plan to see the train start rolling out in 2033. You can see by my hair, I'll probably be retiring around that time. So it'll be nice to see the end of the project and also have been at the start of it as well. So there's a huge amount of work that's going to be created as a result of it, and it'll look like this. So who's familiar with Euston Station as it is now? You know, Euston, it's a bit of a tired old station. It's probably the biggest of the London stations that's had no work done to it. London Bridge looks lovely, Waterloo's a nice station, King's Cross down the road looks great now. Euston looks terrible. So it's going to have this beautiful, shiny new station built next to it. So there's going to be a whole regeneration of that part of London. So the whole of Euston and parts of Camden are going to look completely different. You can see, I don't know if you can see at the back there, what's almost like a ghost of buildings. So as well as building a station, on top of that, there will be offices, accommodation, retail units. So it'll be a massive difference to that particular part of London. It'll look like this inside, so much area, much roomier. If you go to Euston at the minute, you stand at the back of the station and then you see your train call and you have to leg it down the end. Whereas this station is going to have escalators down to where the platforms are, so it'll make it much more accessible, much more easy to get around, and it'll connect London in a way that it hasn't been connected before. But it looks like this right now. It's a massive building site. Okay, so we've dug into, this is the main site area here, right next to Euston Station itself. So it's a long station that's going to have 10 platforms running out. So you'll be at the beginning of Euston Road, it'll run down the side of Hampstead Road, and then it'll connect to where the tunnels are going to start to be dug at the end in Camden. So then the tunnelling work starts by another organisation, and then that'll run through to Old Oak Common. But you can see from those images that there's a lot of work to be done. We're just having to move things around at the moment. You know those jigsaw puzzles that are in a frame and you've got to move the pieces around until you get to the final solution to it. That's what this is like. So when one of our senior people on the project was told about this job, he said, yeah, are there any obstacles around it? And they were like, oh, well, a few. And the few were there were buildings in the way. We had to do excavations. So can you have a guess at how many bodies or remains of bodies we had to bring out of the ground because there was cemetery, an old cemetery that's on the site. Have a guess at how many bodies were taken out. 40,000. So there were the remains of 40,000 bodies that had to be removed. Every bone was taken away and is now in a cemetery out in Surrey. So there's a huge amount of work. We've still got to dig up part of the ground again, and there's probably a load more remains underneath there as well. So when you're going back hundreds and hundreds of years into a fairly populated part of London, there's always going to be something that's going to come out of the ground. Further up the line, you might find Roman villas and things like that, but in London it tends to be that there's either parks or cemeteries or something like that that's been there before. So a huge amount of work to do before we even start to build the station. And eventually it'll connect. If you're familiar with Camden and particularly around Euston, it's quite a difficult place to get around. You have to sort of walk. If you're walking east to west, you have to walk right round the front of the station to get onto another part of Camden and then walk through. What this station's actually going to do is be able to connect east to west. So you'll be able to walk through and up and over the station, and you'll be able to get around much easier. They're going to re-green a lot of the areas that are being dug up at the moment. So it'll make it a much more attractive place to come to, much like King's Cross is now. So King's Cross isn't just a station anymore. At the back of it, you've got Granary Square, you've got Google that's based there now. So it's just revolutionised that area of London, and this will do the same for around Euston. And as you would expect with a station that's promoting sustainability and promoting, you know, a much more greener approach to travel, this is going to contain some of those elements. So if you remember the sails that are on the top of the building, one of the sustainability engineering solutions is to make sure that that provides lots of natural light, so you're not so heavily using electricity. The side of the rainfall will run down, and that will create what's called a blue pool, so that all of that water will then be regenerated throughout the rest of the building. So any toilet water will be coming out from the rainwater that's being collected. So it's making it a much more climate conscious station, because HS2 is going to be an electric run train line. It's going to get lots of people out of their cars and onto the trains. So the station needs to be as carbon friendly as possible as well. And there, as I mentioned, you'll be able to get from east to west, and it's much more accessible in terms of accessibility. People who are using wheelchairs or who may find walking quite difficult. So it's going to make it a much more accessible station in that regard. But we're slap bang in the middle of, well, one of the busiest, if not the busiest road coming into London. Euston Road is an incredibly busy road. You know, it's the main road out to the west. You've got several buildings that are right by us. So right next to us is the Royal College of General Practitioners. So if you wanted to become a GP, you've got to go and do your final exams there. Well, you're right next to a construction site. So we have to stop our works at certain parts of the day because there are exams that are taking place. So we're very close to them. We're very close to a number of small businesses. So we have to be respectful and mindful of our impact on them. So we try to work with them as best as we can. Do you know who the MP is for that particular area? No? He might one day be the Prime Minister. Yeah, so Keir Starmer is the local MP for St Pancras and Euston. So making sure that we are treating residents absolutely correctly, because otherwise we're going to have some fairly hefty complaints coming in. So we've got to make sure that we're being a good neighbour at all times. So the works that we carry out, we have to make sure that we're not disturbing people who are living nearby. There's always going to be a bit of disturbance that takes place, but we've got to be mindful of how that impacts upon people. And so all of our works are carried out with that in mind. So it's a really complex project. And one of the bits of it that's quite complex is what's called the traction substation. So I'll run through this bit if the technology works. Oh.
The future Euston Station. Euston Station is expanding. High Speed 2 is going to take the form of this entire area here. The existing traction substation sits within the footprint of that new station. We therefore need to relocate it out of the way so we can excavate the basement for the new Euston Station. Traction power and ventilation substation provides power to tracks, trains and supporting stations. The trains, when they move, they give off energy, which creates a lot of heat, and therefore the supporting ventilation system cools down the trains, ensures that the trains can carry on moving as well as the passengers can feel comfortable. So on the TSS, we've got two sites. To the south of the site, we have 104 interlocking piles. They create a 20 metre by 20 metre box. We've just completed the excavation of that box. It's 20 metres deep, and that provides the basement for the substructure and superstructure to be formed. On the north of the site, we have sunk a 20 metre deep construction shaft. The upper part of the shaft is formed of precast reinforced concrete elements that form a caisson. And the bottom half of the shaft is spray concrete lining. It's high pressure concrete that's got tiny steel fibres that are there to support the excavated ground. We've had some fantastic innovations on the project so far. In terms of design, we redesigned one of the tunnels so it was more efficient, but it also didn't reduce performance. We also reused some material from the previous demolition contractor. Those two innovations saved about 1,000 delivery vehicles off the road and saved about 250 tonnes of carbon. So one of the important measures we must remember is that we're visitors in this area to the businesses and residents around Euston. One of the important measures that we've put in place to ensure we don't disrupt the local community is just to the north of site, we've installed an acoustic shed. That allows the tunnel operations to take place 24 hours a day, whilst also controlling our noise emissions. So we've had some huge challenges so far being in central London. The tunnel itself was like threading an eye through a needle. Above us, there's some high voltage power cables. Below us, we have some TfL running tunnels. To the west of us, we had a Thames Water trunk main, and the HS2 station itself sits on top of the tunnel. So our tolerance levels are very tight, and we have to make sure that we're to the very specific detail.
So it's a really complex thing to have done. This old station, and I think I've got the picture of it just there. So this was at one time Hampstead Road Tube Station. It's been discontinued for a long time, but it housed all of the power for the Northern Line, and it would have housed the power for part of the Network Rail Station as well. So all of that had to be rerouted through a tunnel. And to see I've actually walked through the tunnel, and Max will be able to talk about it because you've worked on that part of the project. It's just phenomenal. And to think, when Rob was mentioning about that acoustic chamber, no sound, no disruption actually escaped from that building, and they were tunneling 24 hours a day, 6 days a week. It was phenomenal. It's an amazing achievement to have been able to dig through that. And it's the set. So eventually it will have a new building that's in the process of being built at the moment. And that shaft that they showed from the aerial view had all of these sensors around it. It just shows the advance in technology. So Rob, the senior project manager, was on his honeymoon in South Africa, and he got an alert that there was a problem in the shaft. So there was the sensors are so intelligent that as soon as anything is near it that's not quite right, it sets off an alert. And what it was one of the buildings that's quite close to the shaft had erected some scaffolding and hadn't told anybody that they were going to do it. So that it was sending these messages that there was a problem at the station. So all of the stuff that's being used on the station and the site itself is of the highest possible technological advancement now. So working on a station like this is, it's using old engineering solutions, but with new technology to be able to deliver that. We're also building a skills centre where we'll all be housed in. This is an old school called Maria Fidelis, which is on the site itself. And that's being adapted and changed into our site accommodation, but also a skills centre. So there'll be college courses that will be delivered out of there. There'll be training programmes that will be delivered out of there as well. And we'll deliver our work experience programmes. Huge amount of utilities that have to be diverted so that things can operate without great big water mains running through the whole section of the site, or electricity cables that are kind of that need to be capped off and not used anymore. So there's a huge amount of work that needs to take place before we get anywhere near actually building it. And then it's not just the high-speed station. So we're also building an interchange for Euston Square. So again, if you know Euston Square, it's sort of away from the mainline station. So you come out of Euston Square and you've got to walk all the way down Euston Road to be able to go and get on the mainline train. Well, this will connect that. So it will mean that you've got 3 tube lines that will be much easier to be able to connect to, and there'll be greater accessibility. And what we're doing is also creating jobs for local people. So these people here on the images were people who were looking for work. One of them lived right across from the station and thought, how do I get into a job there? We run pre-employment programs to be able to help people who are either out of work or looking out to change a career, and then they can come and gain work on the site. And what we're also keen to do is, 1, we're building a skills centre, as I mentioned, but 2, recruiting apprentices. And that's really key to us. So being able to have, a pipeline of talent from the local area is really, it's just absolutely essential for us to make it a project that is meaningful for everyone. And certainly that's what we've been able to do, recruiting a large number of apprentices across the last 3 or 4 years that we've been going. One of whom is Max. So I'm going to hand over to Max so he can talk about his experience.
Yeah, so I'm Max. I'm a construction management apprentice on HS2. Like Barry mentioned, so I started out as a construction trainee, coming from sixth form, which I guess is similar to what you're doing now. And then finish this and then uni or whatever. Hopefully do what I'm doing. So yeah, come out of that, went on to Heathrow straight away, down at doing construction air bridges, so air bridge replacement, that sort of thing, which was all right. I was there for about a year doing that, and come out for furlough and COVID hit. Then come straight onto here, where I've been for the last couple of years now. Started out the TSS, so traction substation, which is what Rob was mentioning on that video, which was pretty awesome. Well, just the sheer side of it and the civil engineering side of it, which was like, yeah, pretty cool doing that. We've got turning around 40 loads of muck away when we're excavating. So digging that box, that 20 by 20 box, excavating material all day long, bang, bang, bang. And then we're also digging a tunnel as well, 66 metre long tunnel, concrete spraying, which is pretty cool as well. So what I actually do is reporting, so shift reports every day, labour numbers, what we've actually achieved, targets we've hit, work we haven't hit, that sort of thing. And then any delays that we've had, so report that to my PMs, whoever reporting to, report any delays we've had, make sure that we all know where we are with the programme. And the other side of that, the new programme we're giving, so you know what programme looks like there, you've got your dates, your activities, that sort of thing. But I report against that basically. Been doing that for like the last couple of years, and now I've moved over to the dentist, which is the welfare accommodation. I'm running that on my own, which is it's all right. It's not as cool as all like civil engineering side of it, just landing these cabins, which have already come pre-fitted out. So landing 188, then start connecting it all up. It's like Lego basically, plug in and play. So yeah, hopefully moving back to the TSS in a couple of weeks, and yeah, do the slip forward, which is like these hydraulic jacks on all these shutters. So put the shutters in and start jacking it up, which is cool. You're pouring concrete the whole time as well. So yeah, that's what I'll be doing as well. Pretty much it. I'm only 3 years in, so I've been doing my level 4 MVQ and level 4 MVQ, and now I'm doing my level 6, which is equivalent to a degree. So that's as well. Other than that, pretty much me.
Yeah, and Max is being really humble because he actually won Mace Apprentice of the Year last year. So he's done incredibly well on the project since he's come on with. I mean, what are the main benefits of being an apprentice, would you say?
The fact that you don't got to pay for university, that was the main reason I'd done it. So my old man's in construction as well. He does the quantity surveying side of things. And he said, look, if you want to go to university, then you need to know exactly what you wanted to do, which I didn't. I was just kind of coming out of school, just thinking, I'll do something, study like maybe business or something at university, which I'm glad I haven't now, because I've got mates coming out of there that can't really get what they want, because what companies mainly look for is experience. They don't want to see, that's mainly what they want is experience. And if you haven't got experience, it's a lot more difficult. So if you come straight out of school into a company, you're forced into that professional environment straight away, you develop a lot quicker, I think, anyway, than someone that's just coming out with, a degree, that sort of thing. So yeah, and they pay for your whole education basically. So I've done a level 4 and a level 6, all free, and paid a single pound for it. And I'm as qualified as someone that's coming out of university.
What are the challenges, would you say?
Being young around people that aren't. So by that I mean there's not a lot of, we're getting more and more apprentices in, but mainly because I'm on site based, I'm on site every day checking drawings, checking programs and that sort of thing. I'm mainly with people that are double my age, triple my age in some cases, and speaking to them like in that environment, it's quite challenging at first, and that you don't really have the experience to draw on, and you feel like you're just building experience and like no one's really listening to you. But that's not the case at all. You just start asking questions and start picking up things pretty quickly. You'll find that everyone just treats you with a bit of respect anyway. So I've been doing my role, like I mentioned, is mainly programs, drawings, and that sort of thing. But you can sort of pick out whatever you want as part of your progression. So I've been doing some setting out. Have you done? If you looked at setting out and that sort of side of engineering at all? No. So basically, what you do is you've got the tripod set up, start setting out coordinates. So I've been playing around with a bit of that, just seeing how engineers on site work, that sort of work as well as hard work. But it's quite rewarding when you do start picking things up like that sort of thing.
And what advice would you give to anyone who was thinking about making that decision between what you need to do to become an apprentice or what you need to do to go to university? What sort of tips would you give?
Mainly, if my whole thinking behind it, and I might not be right in what I'm saying, but it's if you don't know exactly what you want, but you have an idea. Do you know what I mean? So by that I mean, you know, I come out of school and was like, no, I quite like construction, but I wouldn't know what to do with it really. Like, what would I study in university for it? So if you're not, you know, set on what you want to do, I'd say an apprenticeship is probably the route, because you can sort of find your way from there rather than going to university and then coming out with something that you might not want to do 4 years down the line. It's a lot more, I don't know, it's a lot more friendly in that sense, in that if you go onto the apprenticeship, you're not set, it's not set in stone that you've got to go and do that for the rest of your life. You can sort of, you know, you might find another part of the company that you quite enjoy, or another part of the work that you enjoy, and that's the way you sort of stumble through it. So I'm quite lucky in that when I joined, I just wanted to do that straight away, and I really like the idea of just being on site every day, because I can't sit in an office. I weren't great in school, and sitting behind a computer wasn't really for me. And my role is kind of half and half, in that I can go on site, you know, and visualize a lot of it rather than just sit behind a screen and just start, you know, going back like that. Because that's what happened in school. I just didn't get it like that. Whereas with this, I can be a lot more hands-on with it and that sort of thing as well.
That's brilliant. Thank you. That's great. And someone who would have liked to have been here today, but he's actually at university, came to this college last year. So he finished year 13, decided that he wasn't going to go to university and wanted to apply for an apprenticeship. Some of your tutors from the engineering department, I think Saish and some of the tutors came and visited our site and came back and told people what it was like to actually work at HS2. And Jagji is now a civil engineering apprentice working for Mace as part of this project. So someone who's been through the same course that you have, and is now actually working as an apprentice. So he was, you know, similarly started A levels, weren't really into that, and decided that a BTEC level 3 would probably be a better route for him. So he achieved that, knew that he didn't want to go to university, so managed to get into the project that he's working on now. And what he said was that you probably find that the path to university is mapped out a lot easier. So you know that you've got to apply at a certain time, you've got to do this, and you've got to, you know, fill out a personal statement. Actually finding an apprenticeship, you have to put a bit more effort into finding. So you have to find out what it is that you want to do, where you need to apply, make sure that you get in at the right time. So March is usually a cut-off point for apprenticeship applications, and making sure that you're on it really in terms of proactivity in terms of finding an apprenticeship. But he's really enjoying it. Started in September. He's been working on, so this is the Euston Station, the Gordon Street interchange bit. This is where that's all being dug out, and we're also creating a temporary entrance to the existing Euston Station at the minute. So he's working on the engineering part of that as well. So, you know, these are really, really interesting and engaging opportunities that are being created, and they're there for you, really. So we at the minute are recruiting apprentices. So if you're in, are you all year 12 or year 13s, or a mix of the two? Mix? Okay, so this will be most relevant for the year 13s. We are recruiting for 2 civil engineering apprentices. One will be working on the substructure, so that's the piling work that's going on prior to the station being built. And we're also looking for a civil engineering apprentice to work on the utilities diversion. So it's moving all of the the electrics, the water, the sewage, all of that sort of stuff. So it's coming up with the solutions around that. So 2 of those are due to start in September. The one that I've missed off there is geospatial surveying, which is, so if you see people with what look like cameras in the middle of the road and you're like, what are they taking pictures of? It's actually surveyors that are doing measurements around the perimeter of the station. So we've got a geospatial surveying apprentice, which is at level 3 that we're recruiting for as well. And then a procurement apprentice, which is somebody who buys all of the kit in for the station. So if we need to get a concrete pour. So how much concrete was it? 500 square meters?
500 square meters for a slab. A slab 20 by 20. It's just obscene amount of size and concrete going into it.
So somebody has to buy that, right? And somebody has to do all of the contract that comes along with that. So that's what a procurement apprentice does. So we've got that available as well. And if you were looking to get into work immediately, which I'm not suggesting you all quit your college course and then you go off and become a groundwork apprentice or a pipe fitter, but we've got those opportunities available with our subcontractors as well. So if you are interested in applying to become a civil engineering apprentice, starting in September, earning 21,000 a year, and getting a level 6, which is it will be a BSc in civil engineering, then all you need to do is drop us an email at c@MaceDragados.com with your CV, or you can apply via the QR code, and these slides have been shared. So if you wanted to get hold of that, you can do that as well. But it's a great project to work on. For many of you, it won't be that far to travel to work either. So, it's going to be a landmark project in the centre of London. So to be able to say that you've worked on something that's going to completely revolutionise travel in this country would be a great thing to do. And also I think it's the biggest engineering project in Europe at the moment, the whole of HS2. So it would be a real thing to put on your CV if you're able to get into this. Okay. So thank you for your time. All right. And I hope that's sparked some thoughts and questions. And certainly for Max, I would have thought you've got some questions for Max, but more than happy to answer any questions that you've got generally.
Do you have any questions? For very end, Mark?
Oh,
Yes.
question left.
Awesome.
Where do you see yourself in like 2 years?
2 years. So, sorry.
Yeah, well, after you get your bachelor.
Yeah, so it's a 4-year apprenticeship. So I'm with Mace, so it's a 4-year apprenticeship. I assume it's probably the same.
Yeah.
For just coming on. So 4 years. We're doing it 3. I'm in my final year. I'd like to be a qualified construction manager. So I've gone up from construction trainee to assistant. Last year I went to assistant. I'd say probably in 2 years' time I'll be construction manager. Maybe even next year once I fully complete it. But the progression is quite steady. Like you can see, you start out at the bottom and you have a clear route, and you were told pretty much what you've got to do to get to the top. So 2 years' time, I'd like to be fully qualified. 5 years, maybe a senior, and then with more experience, I'd like to just keep pushing on, and hopefully construction lead for HS2. I don't know.
Great question.
Questions, Max. So when you apply, what is the most challenging part of the application process? I see after CV, what will be next, and how your experience with this?
Well, when I applied, I had to do it through Mace, which was a phone interview, and then a face-to-face interview, and then interview after interview. So hopefully it's a bit more. Is it the same process?
Yeah, there's probably you send your CV in, and then there is a phone interview, and then face-to-face interview. Yeah.
So with that process, it's quite long-winded, but you sort of hear back pretty quickly for everything, and provided the interviews go well, I come out with pretty average grades as well, so I've done quite well to get the apprenticeship in the first place. But yeah, provided you've got the grades and you do the interviews well, no problem.
And I would say to people, if you were interested in applying, that really state what it is that you enjoy about engineering or about construction, and why you think this would be a project that you could see yourself working on. So think about the things that it's looking to do around sustainability, around how it's going to create great social value. It's going to make a real difference to people who live in and around Houston. So if you can get those messages across in your application, that will demonstrate that you've thought about what it is that you want to do, and you see it as more than just being, right, it's a job that I'm going to do and I can get some qualification out of. Actually, you know, this is going to be a revolution in engineering, and some of the things that are being tried out on the project. So we've got, just to give you an idea, we've got some what are called hyper piles. So these are piles that go into the ground. I think they're 15-meter piles. They've got a hole in the middle of them. All right. So they draw up heat from the earth, and then they power the building itself by using natural sources rather than being reliant upon fossil fuels. So all of these innovations that are taking place have never been attempted before. So it's getting across in your application that you're interested in the innovation that's taking place in engineering, in the different ways that construction is becoming much more advanced. So we've got people working on HS2 that used to be gamers, right? So they were creating all sorts of games. They're now building BIM models or building information modeling models. So they're the way that construction and engineering is changing and adapting to the technology that's around there is really exciting. So if you can get that across in your applications, that'll stand out, and it'll show that you're interested in it more than just, yeah, it's a job and I'll just go to work and then go home, you know. So really try and convey those messages across in your application, I would suggest.
Between balance the time of the university and also the working, because you need to study and do the job at the same time, right?
The balance is fine, because the company will give you the time, provided you do what's asked of you and you know you fulfill your role as an apprentice. The company will give you that time, and they'll say, you know, I need X amount of time this week or X amount of time today. I did it on day release for my level 4, so every day at the end of the week, Friday, which I'm handed, I'd go over to, I think it was, I remember, LSBU, if anyone knows. So I did LSBU day release, and you meet people that are doing the exact same as you, and you know they're quite good fun anyway. You have to crack with them, and then now the level 6 I'm doing is all in my own time. So the NVQ is all evidence based, so it's like coursework if you like. So just as and when you do that, I'm hopefully having that finished this year. So yeah, be fully qualified with that, and then hopefully move on to level 7 and whatever from there. But provided you hit your targets and do what the company asks you, the company will give you the time to do it.
Yeah, so it counts as your learning counts as 20% of your week. So if you work that, that's like, as Max was saying, it's day release. So you do 4 days in work and then a day learning. So and because apprentices are so at the heart of everything that we're doing, the support that people get is really helpful. There's an early careers network as well. So the apprentices and new entrants to the project get together, so they're supporting each other and having social events and all of that sort of stuff. So people feel there's a genuine sense of belonging on this project. I've worked in this kind of work before, and it's, you know, apprentices are kind of, oh, we've just got to get them on, and you know, but they're really supported on this project, and people feel like they belong to the companies that they work for. And to, you know, you can see what you're doing is making a difference. So, you know, it's a really great place to work, as well as, you know, gaining something that'll be really valuable on your CV as well.
Last question, Mary. I think I asked too much. The student, do you have any questions before I ask this?
Yeah.
Yes.
How competitive is it to get subventions?
That's a really good question. So last year we had, I think there was around 20 applications for one job. So that's not hugely competitive in comparison to, you know, if Google put out an apprenticeship, you probably have thousands. I think one of the challenges that we have is construction's not considered to be that sexy, really, is it? You know, it's kind of, people still see it as being hard hats and muddy boots, but actually it's much more than that. I think the fact that we've got a range of different apprenticeships that we'll be recruiting for this year, I think competition, now that people are more aware of HS2 Euston, I think it will be, there'll be greater competition this time round. So that's why I would suggest, you know, whatever you've learned or heard today, incorporate that into your application because it will make a difference. And one of the other things that, sorry, I should have mentioned when I was going through about the support for the next generation, we are going to be running a work experience programme with students from this college. So if you're interested in coming and doing a week's work experience at the station, you won't get to do anything hands-on necessarily because health and safety rules would forbid us from doing some of that, but you'll get to meet people who are working on the project. We ask you to come up with a project design for a station of the future so that you can think about some of the things that you have to take into account when you're planning such a, you know, a revolutionary station. So if that's something that you're interested in, we're putting that together. I think that's due to happen in April or May. So if you fancied having a week at HS2 Euston, that's also good. That if you were then going to go on and apply for the opportunities, then to be able to say I've done a week's work experience at Euston will stand out clearly. So there's a way to get ahead of the competition. All right.
Any other questions?
Hey.
That we work experience in the evening. When are we going to find out about that?
We're just in the process of organising that with the engineering department and the careers department as well. So we should know in the next couple of weeks when that's actually going to take place. Yeah, it won't be too long before you find out.
Yeah, so your teachers and the work experience Dan, you heard about his name? Yes, he will, Daniel and yeah, and Sage. They will be advertised that opportunity for you. Any other questions?
All the apprenticeships we released based on HS2 of our projects.
No, they'll all be at HS2 Euston. Yeah. No, we're not recruiting for anywhere else. So yeah, it's just for our station.
So that is a chance that you can ask all the questions. The later points will be a bit more, okay?
Say, let's say after he said HS2, what other project would it be like?
Well, we're building the station for the next 10 years, so you'll be working on that for the time being, and who knows from there. I mean, we can't determine what's going to happen after that. I mean, the work that's going to go on, what's called the oversight development, that's with an organisation called Lend-Lease, who are the developers. So they will at some point be building buildings on top of the station. So whether people would move on to that or not, it's difficult to determine. But to be able to look at it and go, right, okay, well, if I get an apprenticeship here, I'll be doing it, as Max has said, for 4 years minimum. But it's a 10-year programme. And, you know, so the chances are that we continue on there. And, you know, HS2 is being built up to Birmingham. It's been given consent to carry on up to Crewe and then to Manchester. And then there will be a connecting line across the Leeds. So, you know, this work's going to go on for the next sort of 10, 15, 20 years to improve the rail network. So if you've worked on a landmark part of it, you know, that sort of stuff going on your CV, you could work wherever.
And any other questions? I find the questions. So he also mentions that if the student now they're not really sure what they want to do, or even they're just interested a bit in engineer constructions, just go ahead. And even in the middle, they figure out no, they like another thing. Is it have a chance that they move to work in a different project or different department? How is it will be happen with their university and their?
Yeah, well, with my apprenticeship, I'm sure it'd be exactly the same for you. There's opportunities all over. So MaceDragados, also international companies. So Barry mentioned that I won an award. So they're for that. They're flying me out to Dubai, New York, or the Middle East for a week to go and see a project over there. And that sort of opportunity, you can then go out and work, you know, in them places. So I've got someone who's on the same program as me, same year, who's going to be moving over to Dubai to work over there. And you get, you know, you all over Canada, Amsterdam, all over the globe. You can go and work eventually, but for what you'd want to see, HS2 has got the most going on, or will have the most going on over the next 4 years. You wouldn't need to work anywhere else to see any more different, parts of construction, because it's just got everything. But the opportunity is there, and it will be there to just go all over eventually.
We had some Mace graduates and apprentices who just started in September, and they came over and they're working on some really interesting and exciting projects. And every single one of them was like, how do I get to work on this? Because if you're interested in engineering and construction, it's the perfect place to work because it is so varied. And that changing what you want to do halfway through. So we've got the reason why we've got a procurement apprentice role coming up is our current procurement apprentice has qualified and is now moving on to become, because he's works in the commercial team, he's moving on to look to become a quantity surveyor. So that shift by being involved in part of the project and then moving on to do something else, you're in at the right place. And that's the greatest thing about working in this kind of work. Once you're in and you show that you're good at what you do, people start spotting you, and then they start seeing that there's opportunities that are opening up. So there's a variety of different ways of moving around in those sort of projects.
Great opportunity. So yes, thank you very much so much for the coming delivered talk. And I mean, I opened the mind about the S2 project today. So just the final word for you guys is, if not now, in the next 3 years, or I mean, even when you get a part-time job, you need to go through again the application process. Competition will be more because everyone get a university degree, no experience, you need to compete with the same. And now, when you have this, at least you know, and you test the work. Okay, that is constructions, how it look like. And especially if you like something a bit hands-on, practical, and also get a degree, it will be a great opportunity to think and consider apprenticeship. I would say for the careers in the trend in the future, that the government now try to put a lot for the apprenticeship, even the child thing, even the medicine, law, also will have apprenticeship in the future. So that will be the trend for the future. So if you have any questions, you can come to us. We can support you in the CV, in the support application process, with a mock interview for you, because that will what you will need to do when you apply for this apprenticeship or any apprenticeship. So we're here to help you. So thank you so much. So if any questions, so I will be sending this slide to your teacher, and they will be sharing detail with you. But if you fancy to have it right now, then just come and see me, and I can, yeah.
You go back to the slides. Timetable.
Oh, okay, can. Yes, so I put it at the end.
Yeah.
So, tomorrow we will have the apprenticeship about finance and investment banking. And for the morning, lunchtime. And then we will have the law firm come and talk, but it's not only about the law. It will be about the apprenticeship in law and professional service, like the procurement, finance, HR, anything around this. And on Wednesday, we'll have Cisco. Talk about IT and technology. So if you're interested in computer science, cybersecurity, any of these areas, they are the expert on this. And then on Thursday, so we will have the chat with the 4 apprenticeship. They are the ex-Candy student who in the last 4 or 5 years ago, they are the same as you, and now they will talk with you how they get through the application process, how they bring on the other competitors to get through this. And I will say, from what Barry shared about the application process, is quite simple compared with the novel. Okay, novel will be 4 or 5 different stages, and you need to do the test. Okay, so come along. If you more engineer, so either this one and this one will be general for everyone to know about the process, how to keep resilient, because it's very rarely that if you apply one and you get one. Usually student may apply 10, 20 to get one. Okay, so come along this one to know about this process and how you can stand out. Any other questions? Okay, thank you so much. For any other questions, you can come here to answer it. Thank you.
Cheers.
Oh, hello.
We've been speaking about like how he's working his profession.
Yeah.
So he said make sure, he said Barry there, make sure.
You wouldn't give us a photo though.
Yeah, no, I was gonna tell you, I'll put it on there.
When he said a photo over, I was like, that's just out of the window. But he hasn't had a chance to go on site yet, so.
Yeah, but it's like a picture of him, it's like the apprenticeship.
So you at college here then?
Yes, I finished at 8. I'm doing the chemicals and engineering, so it's the engineering level 3. And I'm looking for.
Well, it's sort of big enough. So one is going to be working on the main site and then the other is on. So they're really
Yeah, you said that.
you get these.
You said that was.
Yeah, so there's a full load of he died. So you've got a site, it's got a so that's got to be really connect to the sewerage for the rest of you know, I'm not an engineer. The whole, the next 2 or 3 years, they've got to everything. Without the engineering solution, to be able to do it, there's not going to get built. And then obviously you've got then the main stage to have water, electricity, you know, telephone cables, everything like that. So it's working on that. So a lot of it is looking at how, from drawings, how do you make sure that you're excavating in the right place? The tunnels, the pipe fittings that's going on, all that sort of stuff. So it's really solution. The substructure is all about piling, which is a lot. We've got 2,000 pipes that have to be put in to support the whole station. So that's a massive piece of work. And that's why it's taking the length of time it's taking. Yeah. But some people are speaking about their retirement parties, they're trying to pull him out. Yeah, I mean, it's genuine. I don't say it. I mean, it's a brilliant project. I think it's the senior leader, if they know something in the practice, they can achieve this speech. It's been there's a lot of them, some of the older construction managers, some extent, so they realise don't do that. You know, they're not going to build around the project, so.
Well, like you have said to me that he has been enjoying it, you know, it's keeping us updated on the movement, so. He sold me on it. He said, because I want to go mainly into electrical, but then he said, you can't go wrong with the degree from civil engineering.
Yes.
If I don't get any electrical, you can't go to the whole degree from there. He said, apply for it, and if you get it, then you know you get it. But if not,
the thing is as well, so the MEP work, so the mechanical electrical plumbing, that's coming starting 4 years. Just for the fitness of the station, it's 375 million, which would work. That's a huge, so we tons of apprenticeships to do an apprenticeship as well. So there'll be the opportunity to shape civils experience when I convert. So it's getting in and being there, really, rather than waiting for the very right.
yeah, sometimes you just got to feel a little bit, and whatever you're interested in, so might come instead.
Yeah.
So yeah, you know, I look forward to it.
Yeah.
It's lovely meeting you.
All right. No, the way that we're doing it, it's making it. So we don't. Another Is it for me? Right, okay, so that's based in apprenticeship wide program, yeah, so. I've got, still do that. Yeah. Yeah.
Because I thought I really to email my CV.
Yeah, so do it either through that QR code or email it to MaceDragados. And just say that it's met me.
What's the name?
I know the barrier.
Very much putting that.
No, and two, all right. Yeah, sure. And you, all right.
I was going to talk to you about this. I'm really interested. It's actually like next to my house as well.
Oh, okay.
Oh, yeah. I've always I just wanted to know like more of the
Yeah, good, it's good. You know, they're delighted to be complicated. The structure now. As well. So one of the people that was on when I said they were looking over into the site, there's a guy who got made redundant a couple of years ago, and he's like, I'll never get back into work. Lived on first got a job over there, and then came through one of our programs. Now he's won loads of awards, and he's, you know, he loves working on the project. So it'd be great to have someone from the other side of the stage. No, yeah. So you're in year 13, so right here, year 12. Yeah, if you want to take one of them, we contribute to the station design consultation. Well, I think it might be possible to hold us down, because that will give you this living area, so it's going to tell you what you're which surrounding the Alright, good. Alright. How you doing? Alright.
Yeah, actually applied to one.
Did you?
So I did a video interview.
Uh-huh.
And now I'm on the assessment up here.
Is that for me? Yeah.
For me, it's the MVPs I've got.
Okay.
I'm just telling you what points, what give me some stay ahead of the
One, just really be vague or be the best in the subject, so don't make it sound like it's just actually all that's happening. Think of some of the innovations that you may or may not have, so kind of come up with solutions. So if you're thinking about,
There's a new one.
if they give you an idea, you know, come up with an innovation. Think about MEPs.
I study electronics.
Right.
As well as you can learn for engineering.
Yeah.
So then I have the systems of this week actually. I'm researching about companies all the skills I need as other companies. So now I add the HS2.
Yeah, that's not. I'm not saying that you could go work with staff. I think as well, if you can include in there the base degree. That's in terms of, in terms of the internal networks. You went home and they choose the one I was like. Yeah, drawing is a good motion. The MEP design consultant themselves. Yeah, it's the steel drawings. That's the. Yeah, like I said, all of the main.
Yeah, because so that be a HS2.
You know. You don't know it's nice that recruitments are everywhere. Like when they've got their whole apprenticeship program that's being recruited, they haven't even got ours. You're getting insight that this is a right.
We haven't seen these ones.
No.
I think they're not car. It's just years you're like with
We have our
Yeah, but some people might believe it. But you know what I mean? Because of all the processes, really straightforward, right? It's all laid out.
Yeah.
Apprenticeship is like more independent.
Yeah, but you got to do it. It's a big town choice, I know, sure. So it sounds like you're on the right track anyway.
I do have that experience of construction board, that's project manager, I had a more.
Yeah.
So I've done a work experience for a week.
Right.
Shows like,
Yeah.
I used to go by. So I was, gathered the project manager for a week, see the engineer drawings. How they solve problems, that was the main things. There was a lot of problems. So,
But you need to really enjoy that. That's the experience that we think about. Yeah.
thank you.
Yeah, good luck on Thursday.
Very doing.
Yeah, I mean, it would depend on which one they go for business to do. So the substructure would be, you'd be observing a lot of the piling work that's going on. So it's 2,000 miles of construction that are basically focused. Yeah, so a lot of that work will be very focused. And so we've got a main site, we've got the bits I was talking about, the TSS. Then we've got some offices that have been pulled down. So do you know Euston pretty well?
Yeah.
So you know, when you come out of the station, is that the accident with the once all of that demolition work start working on temporary demolition and then the inside, so that's where the substructure work will be done. The utilities were is routing pipes with electrical cables, with sewage, with wires, all of that sort of stuff. So you'd be looking at how the drawings need to work, making sure that you're engaging with the logistics people, make sure that the roads are to it. So we look at those at the minute. Are holding to getting so usually roads. So Hanson Road, yeah. We've got a switch that we've got. Utilities on the one side. Yeah, all of that basically pulled up and just the work to be done by the subcontractors. So Mace itself is what is looking so they've worked out the engineering about solutions that they do what they're doing part of that team to that all of that project. So I mean, really scary. So in terms of with you, experience, really. It's a different mind outside. Yeah.
This work is very loud.
Yeah.
I can work around the actually. People come to the contractors come to the.
I mean, no, it's not really me saying what I know from. Yeah, you're coming in as an apprentice, you're gaining all of that experience. For 3 years before someone wants to do as a grad, and they've got to start straight away, you know, they've got to get. What you learn in the classroom might not translate to what actually doing on the job, whereas you're doing the two things together, so you start to spot. That's what I learned now doing it. So I think, you know, that apprenticeship process makes you feel like you're a bit more, it's not starting again after you've done 3 years of school. If you want to go and have that university life, you know, and you know, I remember my first year at university, well, then you get 2 years of hard work and then you've got to come into the workplace. So if you're doing an apprenticeship, you're earning during all of that time. They training sessions we're doing, so the head of what's not part of that management next stage? You get more experience and so work. Exactly. Might work.
Like just where it says.
Yeah.
Tips to.
Right, so I really emphasize what you're learning on this like course. anything that you've done previously, there's got any work experience.
Yeah, I want to do this actually. Around, yeah, I think it's extended. And this is just from some picture. Last year, I do actually, I'm almost something because we know what you're talking about. Some of it is enjoyable, it's a virus discussing stuff. So reinforce stuff.
That's what I'm not to get that, absolutely, right, not just, I didn't say it, it's more than single, I've got to really emphasize the bits that we did. That's your work experience. People do ask you questions, because that's get you through the back, I guarantee that, because we kind of get you that.
All that's not so.
Having heard, what you said, is we've been part of all kinds of work with it, yeah. And then you're up against.
See you later. Hopefully at the pocket, isn't it?
Yeah, so you head off through the work experience on our project as well, and then that to it as well, so it's really emphasised the experience that you get, but also what it is that really impacts your construction, and really get that across. Yeah. Thanks for your time today.
Thank you, sorry about that. Thank you.
Thank you, take care. That's cool. Five mistakes.
I'm surprised, not surprised, but there was quite at the beginning, quite engaged. Good questions, like.
Yeah. Nice one, mate. Thank you very much. Mark, are you volunteering hours?
Where are you gonna go then for your trip? Have you decided? I think I want to go to New York, just because I've never been, and I want to take a couple of mates out. Yeah. Yeah, I'll try and find out more details. But when they did the awards, it was like.
Did you know?
No, I thought I'd get the, not, I wasn't cocky about it, but I thought I'd get the one of the year, because I thought I should have won it the year before. And someone mentioned it to me, like one of the apprenticeship people, like, hey, they didn't know. So I sort of had a bit of an idea that but the other one, like, because they said about the year one, I thought it's going to be something that just goes above and beyond, and there's so much of this extracurricular stuff that, you know, there's all up with LinkedIn and posting every single day. That's, I thought that's the sort of person that said my name was. Got mistakenly.
And did you know what the prize was for?
No, they just said to me afterwards. You sure?
I think, you know, when we saw it, it's like one of those getting it. There's no what I mean, because it is. It's basically about my project, so it should be something awesome and as big as that. That should take. Well, you know, you do so much for me, and you know, it's nice to build it, and it's nice to have the recognition. Yeah, totally. But it's still. Yeah.
I'm surprised at how. Well, that's the standard payment, which they do on artists, seconds, well, face to face, not.
Yeah. He's doing MEP. What was it fine? Work experience in North and Central, then. When you see that, it's quite a but we get a lot because we got more restrictions. Just never get anyone to sleep with. And we put people forward who are doing the second year of university and doing the function. You know, everything's gone if they're doing that. So we, you know, they're next to useless. So doing this week, we've got a lot of people that don't find it. It's pretty decent, yeah. Yeah, but then you can tell them to the line is the really first 5 seats. I like to the illness in sport when it's charity he's an engineer. Alhamdulillah, it's his sister. So she's going to apply in France. So don't know if you've any problems. It's the combinations on that project, but we might soon have.
Oh, thanks for having us. Yeah, no, it's great.
Very engaged, very good.
Yeah, I think we're gonna have some applications going forward, and it's good to hear what you're saying that one of the people's already got a yeah, he's got a MACE assessment there, so that's already complete. So yeah, so it's no, they're really improved. So yeah, that's great. Thanks for inviting us along.
Oh, I forgot to click stop.
Ah.
Uh,